to start out with a Bible passage today. I'm calling this today the Gales of November. Jesus' teaching in Matthew 5:16 was very clear and concise. Okay? Make your light shine so that others will see the good that you do and will praise your Father in heaven. This week I had a doctor's appointment. I know that's really exciting for you. Okay? Nothing major, just a regular checkup. But as I was going through the clinic, I saw this picture sitting up on a shelf at one of the nurses' stations, and it just really grabbed me because Dennis was my friend. We lost him over 15 years ago, and it was just heartwarming to see his picture still up there on the shelf. Now, I posted this picture on Facebook, and 78 people responded in the first 24 hours, okay? Dennis may be gone, but he's far from forgotten. Jesus said, make your light shine. Another thing that happened this week, no, this didn't happen this week. This is my wife Vivian and I.
Over 40 years ago, love.
Yeah, I think this is before we were married, okay? We met in college, and she was this beautiful young co-ed, and I was this scrawny, shy, unkept Dorcas basket missionaries kid, and for some reason she took me in. So,
nobody's going to see that handsome picture of you and believe anything you just said.
I see that picture and I have all the emotions I had at that age, and believe me, it was not handsome. So my parents were missionaries over in Africa at the time, and unbelievably, within less than 6 months, Vivian was inviting me home. She lived, her home was in Michigan. We were going to school in Nebraska, and we weren't engaged. There was nothing permanent, but she took me home to meet the family. Okay?
Gotta be proved.
Now, Vivian has a younger brother who's my age. She's an older woman, I'm a younger, okay? And she has a younger brother who's my age. Now, Randy, he's this big, cuddly teddy bear that's bigger than life. He was a security guard on campus at the college where he worked, where he was going to school. But everybody, you'd walk across campus and he'd be in uniform, and everybody'd be waving, "Hi, Randy, hi!" Okay? There's big teddy bear, and here's Steve. Scrawny, shadow on the wall, don't look at me, I don't exist, okay? And that was me. We were about as alike as January and June, okay? But we both loved the same woman, his sister. And Randy took it upon himself to bring me out of my shell. And one of the deficiencies he identified in me was that I had absolutely zero knowledge of popular music. And so he started introducing me to these songs. And one of the ones that he introduced me to was by Gordon Lightfoot, and it was the song "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald." Now, the Edmund Fitzgerald was the first supertanker that was built and used on the Great Lakes. They had just upgraded the canals and the locks so that they could handle larger ships, and this was the first supertanker that had been built. It was half again as long as any other ship on the Great Lakes. So when the Edmund Fitzgerald came through the locks, everybody was like, "Wow!" You young kids can't remember it, but I remember the first time I saw a 747 flying overhead. It was like, What is that? Well, the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald was a song about a storm that happened in 1975, and the Edmunds Fitzgerald sank in it. That came back to my mind this week abruptly when one of my friends posted a picture of this lighthouse, which is on the western end of Lake Superior in Minnesota, and it only lights. It's been decommissioned and it's owned by a historical society, and they only light the light in the lighthouse one night a year. November 10th, last Sunday. They light the light on November 10th to commemorate the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Well, that kind of got my attention when I saw that on my friend's Facebook post. Wow, because Randy just loved that song. I didn't get it, okay? The music is boring, okay? It's 60s ballad, the same thing over and over and over and
Hey,
over.
I love that song. Just cut it out.
Okay, but I didn't get it. And what's romantic about the wreck of a big iron ore ship, okay? I mean, all it did was haul iron ore from one end of the Great Lakes to the other. Now, what's romantic about that? But Randy loved it, okay? And this is crazy. He loved it so much he was playing it all the time. And it got stuck in my mind, and for days, okay, the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald is going through my mind, okay, and I used to joke with him that he had me trapped on the Edmunds Fitzgerald at the bottom of the lake, and being teenage boys, we could really play that one, glug, 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 okay. Well, all of those memories came back this week when I saw this Facebook post of this lighthouse. But that begged the question, what's the connection between the lighthouse and the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald? So, being a good Wikipedia addict, I got on Google and I found out that the lighthouse is over here and the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald happened over here. They're on the same lake. Okay? This lighthouse was decommissioned in 1961. The wreck happened in 1975. They're in the same century. And that's about as close as you can get on the connection between the lighthouse and the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald. Okay? It's just crash commercialism, tourism. But being a Wikipedia addict, I didn't stop there. I kept reading, and that was when I found the story. Because the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald made such an impact on American pop culture, not because of the song, and not because it was a romantic ship. In fact, it wasn't about the ship at all. It was about a man. Peter Paul Pulser, to be precise. Now, this is the only picture I could find on the internet, and it's absolutely horrible, okay? It's off of a computer screen from a newspaper site that I didn't want to pay the $150 to have a subscription on, okay? This is on Ancestry.com, which I do have a subscription on, much to my wife's chagrin, okay? But Peter Paul Pulser was the captain of the Edmunds Fitzgerald when she was launched in 1958 for the first 9 years of the ship's history. Now, the Great Lakes are big ponds that have streams that connect them. And each stream spills over a cliff, which produces rapids, okay, which produces a narrow place. This is a picture of Sault Ste. Marie in Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan, okay. When the Edmunds Fitzgerald would come through, okay, most ship's captains, when they came to a bridge, okay, because the bridges had to be raised, they would toot their horns, okay, you know, kind of like when a train comes through town here, okay? The train comes through town here, and what happens? We don't even know anymore. It's kind of, we're oblivious to it. What happens is the dogs start barking, okay? The dogs start barking because the train toots its horn and it hurts their ears, and so the dogs have a conversation about how annoying the train is. Well, when the Edmund Fitzgerald came to town, he never touched the horn once. What he did is, before he got to the edge of town, he started playing music through the ship's loudspeakers at full volume. So he's going through town with the ship broadcasting this music, and let me tell you, Paul Pulsar, he was a man with taste. He played popular music, current music, music that made your feet want to tap and your body want to move, music that lifted your spirits, and he did this night and day. It didn't matter what time the Edmund Fitzgerald came through, you could depend on a concert. People enjoyed it. Remember, this is the 60s. This is the 60s when authorities were suspect, and putting it to the man was cool, okay? And the Edmund Fitzgerald did not fit the profile, the captain did not fit the profile of a captain at all. Now, when you got to the narrow place where the rapids were, there are locks that take the ships around the rapids. And most captains, when they were in the locks, okay, they were all business. If they talked to anybody, they talked to the men that were operating the locks, and they were focused on business, okay? They didn't have time for the tourists and the lay people and the kids from town that came out to watch the ships come through. That wasn't Paul, okay? Captain Paul, he kept an eye out for kids and for tourists standing along on the shore. And as soon as he saw a tourist or a kid, he would grab his bullhorn, step out of the cabin onto the platform outside, and he would start at the top of his lungs broadcasting all of the statistics about his ship. She's 327 feet long, guys. That's 3 football fields. And he would just go on, and then he would intersperse this with anecdotes of stories of things that had happened on the ship, and jokes at the expense of the man, okay? He didn't so much sail through the locks as he played the crowd through the locks. It got to be that he had such a reputation that the newspapers in the towns along the rivers would publish when the Edmund Fitzgerald was going to be coming through. Okay? And people from the countryside around would come in with picnics just to watch them go through the locks, because they would hear him coming for miles up the river with the loudspeaker blasting, and the music would come, and then he would come into the locks, and then he would play the lock. Okay? So when the newspapers carried the news on November 11th that the steamer Fitzgerald was feared lost on Lake Superior, okay, now the picture up here, the lake wasn't the only place where there was a storm. This is Mackinac Bridge, which connects the upper and lower peninsula of Michigan, and the winds were so fierce there that this semi got blown over, landed on top of a car and blocked the lanes, okay? This was a big storm, but what really got people, the Fitzgerald is lost. This very day down in Detroit, one of the cathedrals had a special prayer service in their daily service, praying for the sailors and their families. They kept doing that annually, praying for the sailors and families of the Edmund Fitzgerald until why would you react this way to a iron ore freighter? Well, it wasn't the ship they were reacting to. The ship was the man. The man was the ship. Paradoxically, he had retired 8 years earlier, but the ship still had his reputation. Jesus said, "Make your light shine." Whether it's Dennis Scranton or Paul Pulser, these men made an impact on the people around them that outlasted their presence. So, that's the Gales of November. Now, here in the church, we're going to be talking about 3 questions. Okay. Let me see if I can remember what they are. Okay. What is similar between the stories of Dennis Scranton and Paul Pulser? What's similar and what's different in their stories? Number 2, what's the difference between being nice, being spiritual, and being religious? And does it matter? And number 3, what does Jesus ask of his followers? So, if you were here in church, we'd be talking about that. You just talk about that at home, and we'll see you next week.